spending cuts that kick in on March 1st. She wants a mix of cuts and, yes, more taxes, which I know you don't like. On the other hand, if you go to the automatic cut, sequestration, you get a 13% cut over the rest of this year in the Pentagon, which I know you also don't like. If it comes down to that, higher taxes or sequestration, the Pentagon cuts, where do you go? Where do you come down?
Well, obviously, I don't want to see taxes increased, but what I would like to see is the president call the leaders over to the White House and say, look, we got to solve this problem. This sequestration, Secretary Panetta, outgoing Secretary of Defense, is one of the most widely respected men or person in Washington, D.C., and he has been saying this will devastate our national security. Republicans and Democrats are responsible for this new cliff, and I'll take responsibility for it for other Republicans, but we've got to avoid it. We've got to stop it.
And what if the president says,
security is
okay, the price of that is some more taxes?
The president is the same one that during the campaign said, it's not going to happen. Remember that? You just dismissed it. And a lot of us, in fact, Lindsey Graham, Kelly Ayotte, and I were traveling around the country warning about what was going to happen as a result of sequestration, and it is devastating. The world is very dangerous. I'm sorry I'm a little emotional about this, but the men and women serving in the military deserve better than what we're giving them. They don't know what they're going to be doing tomorrow. We just delayed the deployment of an aircraft carrier. The cuts are coming across the board. The consequences are severe. It requires bipartisanship. Would I look at some revenue closers? Maybe so. But we've already just raised taxes. Why do we have to raise taxes again?
In his State of the Union speech, aides say that the president is going to call for new investment slash spending on education and energy and infrastructure and manufacturing to try to boost the economy and to boost the middle class. Will you go along with that?
As long as we pay for it. We've seen this movie before. We saw it with the so-called stimulus package back in the beginning of the administration, and we saw the longest, most stagnant economy in history, and now a debt and deficit that's $51,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. The size of the government has grown exponentially. We are, for example, on sequestration, we have a proposal that for every 3 federal retiree, we hire only 1. That would take care of the sequestration problem. That would take care of it. There are simple answers to many of these problems that we can address the problem without raising people's taxes. But first, we ought to sit down across the table, the president should, with us and try and work this out. All he does is go out and make speeches.
The president's nominee for CIA Director, John Brennan, testified in his confirmation hearing this week, faced tough questioning, especially about the administration's targeted killing program for terrorist suspects, even American citizens. What do you think of this idea, which is gaining some currency on Capitol Hill, of what's being called a drone court, where before the president puts a targeted terrorist, especially an American citizen, on a kill list, they have to go get approval from a judge?
I don't agree with it, but because I think it's an encroachment on the powers of the President of the United States. But what we really need to do is take this whole program out of the hands of the Central Intelligence Agency and put it into the Department of Defense, where you have adequate oversight, you have committee oversights, you have all the things that are built in as our oversight of the Department of Defense. But since when is the intelligence agency supposed to be an air force of drones that goes around killing people? I believe that it's a job for the Department of Defense.
But no drone court?
No. I don't. There has to be legitimate oversight by the Congress of the United States in as open process as possible. And we are in a strange conundrum. You can kill an American citizen overseas, but according to this administration, if you capture them in the United States, they got to be read their Miranda rights. What's wrong with that picture?
In another hearing this week, I must say, you've been making more news as a questioner than I have, got a surprising admission from both Defense Secretary Panetta and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Martin Dempsey. They revealed that along with Secretary Clinton and then CIA Director Petraeus,
Director of National Intelligence Clapper.
Right. Added to it, that they all last fall, supported the idea of arming the rebels in Syria, but that the president overruled his entire national security team. What do you make of that, and from what we hear from his aides, his continued refusal to intervene in the civil war in Syria?
I think they're writing one of the most shameful chapters in American history. 60,000 people have been massacred. I've been to the refugee camps and met these people who, the atrocious treatment that's going on. It's disgraceful. And by the way, there is a national security component. It would be the greatest blow to Iran in the last 25 years if Bashar Assad fell, not to mention Hezbollah. So it's incomprehensible. And the President of the United States to say that because people are dying in the Congo is a reason to not act in Syria shows to me a lack of experience and knowledge, which is very dangerous to American national security interests. And again, it's shameful that we have let over 60,000 people be massacred, and we won't even give them arms while the Iranians, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard on the ground, and Russians continue to supply weapons.
Then there is the president's nominee to be the new defense secretary, former Senator Chuck Hagel. At his confirmation hearing, I think it's fair to say you gave him a real going over about his opposition to the Iraq troop surge in 2007. Let's take a look at that.
Were you correct or incorrect? Yes or no?
My reference to the surge being the most dangerous.
Senator Hagel, the question is, were you right or wrong?
I got a question for you. How are you going to vote on the Hagel nomination?
All right, we've still got some more information, but again, that wasn't an academic discussion I was having with Senator Hagel. We were losing the war in 2006, and when the president came around, President Bush, who I'd been very critical of, came around and sent David Petraeus and the surge, we succeeded in Iraq. Now, because of the Obama administration's action afterwards, we're losing, and it's very badly unraveling, but the fact is that if we hadn't done that, more American lives would have been lost unnecessarily. So for then Senator Hagel to say, well, he'll let history be the judge. He was there and involved, and I'm sure he's wrong, and he knows he's wrong on the basis of the facts of what happened.
So I got to press it again, because you saw the hearing, you know his record. Are you going to support him for defense secretary?
I will see the rest of the answers to his questions, but certainly I have very grave concerns.
Grave concerns.
Yeah,
so at this point, it would be fair to say you're leaning against voting for him?
I think that would be fair.
How do you feel about other Republican senators who are suggesting some procedural move to block the nomination?
I think we need all the information from Senator Hagel, but the fact is we have never filibustered a cabinet appointee, and that's why I do not believe we should filibuster his nomination.
Or a hold, or one of those other...
I think we need some more information on questions that he hasn't answered, but, and I hope those questions get answered, but we've never filibustered a presidential cabinet appointee, and I don't think we should start here.
Finally...
elections have consequences, unfortunately.
You know.
There you go.
Finally, immigration. You're part of a bipartisan group of senators, 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, who have come up not with the legislation, but the outlines of a plan for immigration reform. The president wants to put the 11 million illegals who are here now on the path to citizenship, and Secretary of Homeland Security Napolitano said this week that she believes the border is, her words, the border is secure. You, on the other hand, your group are talking about linking the path to citizenship to a number of measures to further enforce the border. Question, will you insist in any immigration package on border enforcement first?
Yes, I will. And that is basically the agreement. There are 11 million people living in the shadows. I believe that they deserve to come out of the shadows. The children who were brought here when they were children, they deserve that kind of consideration as well. But we do need to have a secure border. We can do it with surveillance capabilities and other capabilities, and I believe we can achieve that. But that's our commitment, and I owe it to the people who live in the southern part of my state where drug smugglers are coming across their property every single night.
Let me ask you about the flip side of that, though, because under your plan, although they wouldn't get the path to citizenship until you got this border enforcement certification, they would almost immediately get what's called probationary legal status, which basically means they could continue to live in this country legally. Some of your critics on the right are saying that's amnesty.
Well, I don't think it is amnesty to start with. Second of all, what do you want to do with them? Then that is the question and response. And third of all, it's a tough path to citizenship. You got to pay back taxes. You got to learn English. You got to have a clear record. You've got to get at the back of the line behind other people who have come here legally or even waiting legally. So I just reject that. But I understand how emotional this issue is with many of my friends on both left and right. But I think we are making progress, and we have not come to final agreement on many of the details, some of which you just asked me about.
Senator McCain, thank you. Thanks for coming.